All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the 580 Show, episode 205. Special guest this week, Ben Pevarnik. What's up,
What's
Ben?
up, guys?
So, long-time listener. This is your first time on the show, isn't it? I
It
think.
is.
You might
I'm
have done
honored.
yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on. So, Ben Pevarnik just put up a big total last Saturday at RPS Iron Impact, 1970 total, by way of 785 squat, 520 bench, and a 665 pull. Right. So.
Yep.
And Ben is the owner of the Hog Pen. They call it the Barn. Just a gym out, about an hour and a half east of us, other side of Pittsburgh. So, just want to have Ben on. It's going to be a little bit more of a powerlifting episode, but Ben does have some experience in strongman as well. So, kind of just tied in together. But what were your? So that was what, 100-something pound PR at your comp total?
168.
168-pound PR. So how did obviously it went well if it's 168-pound PR, but how was the comp? Kind of what are your thoughts? You're inching very, very close to the 2K total mark. So
Yeah. I kind of had that number in mind, in training, but then basically just trying to listen to what my training told me I was capable of rather than just shooting for something that wasn't there. So a little bit short right now, but as far as the comp goes, I thought it was ran really well. Area 56 was the gym that hosted the meet. I think that's their fourth annual of the Iron Impact meet, and it was good. It was really fast-paced meet as far as there was not a lot of extra breaks. It wasn't too fast or anything like that. Just really smooth and well ran.
yeah, that's always the best. What's funny is we do strongman comps at Area 56 as well. So I've competed out there. I think Tyler does a really good job with his shows. So
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and we'll definitely be back. It's nice doing a contest where you can, sleep in your own bed and drive over. So that's
yeah.
not very common a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, and that's funny, and I know you and I have talked about it before, but and I was actually talking to Andrew Clayton about it this week, but it's if I did powerlifting, I would probably never travel unless I was if I was like John Hack and it's okay, I can go to Miami or something and win 20 grand. It's yeah, of course. But that's the funny thing in strongman versus powerlifting is strongman, your hand is kind of forced, right? If you want to do nationals or you want to do OSG or whatever, these bigger shows, you kind of have to travel, right? Powerlifting is the same, whether people believe it or not, because I always hear people say, oh, that's USAPL standards, that's RPS standards, that's this, whatever three-letter, federation. Powerlifting, its core is the same thing, right? Your hip crease below your knee. I get there's some small details USAPL uses a stiff bar and a combo rack, but I'm saying the actual judging standards are the same.
Yeah, and it's also it's very much, in my opinion, centered around who the meet director is, because for example, the Iron City meet, which is one that's kind of been going on in Pittsburgh for a long time, usually right at the beginning of summer. It's switched feds, I think, 3 times now in the past 4 years, but it's the same people running it.
Yeah.
So, and they actually run a great meet too. But yeah, it's people, I think, get too caught up in the Fed that's behind it and not who's actually, behind the show and who the people are that are judging. I mean, really.
Yeah. And dude, that's the same exact thing with strongman. It's it could be USS Strongman Corp, unsanctioned. It's really the sanctioning body is just the sanctioning body for nationals, bids, records, all that stuff. You're 100% right. It's if the person's awesome, then the show's going to run awesome that's running it. They're going to have good volunteers and stuff. So you're 100% right. That's a good take. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is to be, a sanctioning body, because we hosted a meet, it's you're just taking a test to prove that you know the rules and everything like that. So whatever your standards are, they are as that person. It's not going to matter what 3 or 4 or 5-letter acronym you put before it. If it's the same guy in the chair, the standard's going to be what it is.
Yeah, no, and I just it's if you need advice on who to sanction through, just get someone that aligns with your, what you want to do. I know for RPS, AIM has been great to me and you guys and for years and years. So I love the RPS. I want to run meets just through them. I want to, keep making them bigger and bigger in our area, like we talk about. But like, that's what it is. Find someone you get along with, good communication, and it's easy to run a comp. Pretty, as long as you care. You got
Yeah, and there's like obviously like little like subsections of like powerlifting where, like you were mentioning before, there's people that primarily train on a stiff bar and a combo rack. So they're obviously going to try to find meets where, you're training on a stiff bar and a combo rack. And then there's going to be federations that are a mono lift and a squat bar and a deadlift bar. And if that's what you're used to training on, that's kind of how you were brought up. Because I feel like most people in powerlifting, they had some sort of mentor or somebody that like kind of brought them in. And usually if they ever deviate from what they were kind of brought up in, it takes a really long time. So most of the time that's like your bias, and that's just kind of what you roll with.
Yeah, and that's why like USAPL I think is so big now with younger kids, is because they have such a big scene with like college, high school nationals. So many kids, like, which I do think it's cool whether you like the USAPL or not. I think it's cool. Like I was at high school nationals last year. And they have 800 lifters. Like that's cool that there's 800 kids that are interested in powerlifting, because
yeah, and it's also like, I mean, what's cool about that's kind of harder to do in the more in the untested federations and all those other things is there's not as direct competition as what USAPL offers. So like, and to your point earlier about like traveling to meets, it's like, well, here's the thing, like if you're not like directly competing against like specific people that you're, trying to beat or see how you stack up against them, it's like you just go on open powerlifting.
Yeah, right.
And you're filtering it and you're seeing where you stack up, as to where like USAPL, you can actually show up on that day and the kids that you were trying to see you stacked up against are literally there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's the cool thing about powerlifting is you can always kind of like compare yourself. Always. Right. It's like even if there was a strongman comp in Pennsylvania and California on the same day with the same events, like the sandbags can be way different. Stones can, it's just like there's so many little things, and that's what I like about powerlifting is the ability to just like compare yourself at all times. So it's cool. It's like, hey man, I squat, bench, deadlift more than you, and I did it in a sanctioned meet.
Right, and that part's cool, and then it's also cool in the sense of like having a little bit of humility too. Like, you might go to a local meet and you are like by far the strongest in your weight class, or you might be the only guy in your weight class. And you kind of, get this false sense of reality where open powerlifting kind of takes you back down, like you go and you're like, oh, wow, no one benched within 50 pounds of me at this meet. But in reality, you're the 700th best bench in your class all time, you know? Like, so it's kind of cool from that perspective too, to give you, goals to keep shooting for, so that if you do want to keep doing these local meets, you don't necessarily have to go and find some guy to beat head to head locally. If there's no one that, is particularly in mind in your specific weight class, it's like, hey, I want to try to get from, 700th in bench to in the top 500 next year.
Yeah.
Like there's, all kinds of little like goals you can make like that.
Yeah. It's always funny on like the adverse side of that is like when someone like does like, you look at the open powerlifting, it has like 19 filters at the top and they like find a way to make themselves like top 20 in the world.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's very like, for me, for example, like I compete in reps, right? So if I filter it to just reps, where there's like way less competitors now than there is with the sleeves included, like I can make myself look way better than what the reality actually is. Cause like the reality is if a guy's out squatting me in sleeves, he's not putting on reps and doing worse.
Yeah. Right.
So like, there's definitely ways to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, I want to talk about a little bit like how you got into powerlifting, but isn't it funny? Like even just, we're not that old yet, but like, isn't it funny just in the last like 8 to 10 years, the evolution of powerlifting, like how much has changed? Like I remember, like I sound old when I'm telling people about like old powerlifting meets that I was at, but it's like, it used to be a lot of multiply, obviously. And even like raw was really like primarily reps.
Oh, 100%.
Like, it was probably, I mean, it was, wraps were just like how SPD sleeves are so popular now and A7 sleeves. Like everyone had a pair of wraps.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even in college when we all trained to squat, we were all training in knee wraps.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not
mean,
every session, but you know what I mean. Like we were competing in wraps.
yeah, you look at like all the old school guys, that like everybody looked up to, like you're like Brandon Lillies and like
Yeah.
all those
Dan
names you
Green,
want to
man.
name
Like,
that were like
yeah.
the old guys that were in like the animal cage and doing meets like big dogs and Australian stuff. It was all raps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I just think it's funny to look at that and
But
just
yeah, to
how,
answer your question, Joe Alessandro is actually who got me into powerlifting. So he's one of my really good friends' dads, and basically at the time, I was training just to be a college football player, but I didn't really, I just bro lifted and did like little like templates online and stuff, not powerlifting specific, just trying to get bigger and stronger. And he offered to train with me, and so I started training with him, and then I actually hopped in a meet in college that he wanted me to do just while I was training for college football. And yeah, I kind of just caught the bug. And then as soon as I was done, with my football career, it was just an easy segue into doing something competitive and still have that kind of outlet.
yeah. That's the best part about strength sports and like so many people. Obviously, people that didn't play sports, it gives them an outlet now to like have things to compete in, but a lot of it is athletes, obviously. Like I couldn't imagine like not having like a physical goal to chase still. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I
Oh
didn't play
yeah,
all sports, but you did. But like I'm just motivated by like that like competition. You know what I mean?
100%. And I was joking around this weekend at the meet with a guy that I know from a gym I used to go to. And we were just talking about like, what would we do if we didn't do this? Like you're just going to look forward to go to work every day.
Yeah,
Like, I just can't imagine. It's like a
yeah.
weird thought.
Yeah, I always talk about I would definitely be like an alcoholic or like I mean, yeah, I might just yeah, I don't it would be bad, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But so was the first meet you did RPS Inferno?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I thought was it one or two? You did one, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did one. That was when Nick Ireland competed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you did one. Yeah, that's funny because so like that was the first comp. So as the president of Powerlifting Club, we had that meet, and you and I didn't even know each other yet. We met through mutual friends, but you competed at that first meet, and then ironically, that's at the same university that you ended up playing college football at, which is
Yeah.
kind of
And
cool, like.
I don't even think I was enrolled there yet.
No, no, you definitely weren't. I don't think you were there for at least another year.
Yeah, that's probably true. I
Because
was like,
you came to Cal because you went somewhere else. You went to like Lock Haven, right?
yep.
And then you came to Cal. Your first, I think, official semester was when I graduated because I was
Probably.
graduating for RPS two, Inferno.
Yeah,
2.
that makes sense. 2017, because
Yeah, yeah,
2017 I think was my junior season, which is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that lines up.
Yeah, that's just funny how it comes full circle. Like you do your first pop meet, and then you end up playing football at that school. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then it's funny like we just mutually like when you do strength sports like just in Western PA in general, like even if we never somehow met each other, we know all the
Yeah.
same people.
Oh, it's nuts. It's nuts. Like I became really good friends with Nick in college, who was one of your really good friends from
High school.
high school. Yeah, and it's like it's just so crazy. And then we both kind of like know Gray, and Gray's like my best friend, and now we're all like really good friends. So it's nuts. But
Yeah.
yeah, but no, that's cool, man. So one thing I probably should have said this at the beginning of the episode, but we're talking about meets and stuff. So you guys have, you guys helped us with our comp in the fall, the first RPS Legion we had. Obviously, that'll be a fall comp every year. And so you guys hosted the Hog Mode Classic last year, and it was a
Yep.
push pull, kind of your guys like first official comp as like I guess a crew. I mean, you guys have been a crew, but
Mhm.
like kind of officially, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But so April 19th, 2025 at 580, you guys will be hosting your second annual under a new name. So I guess the first ever, but kind of your second comp.
Well, the reason we're able to, like, in my opinion, the reason we're able to like change the name and make it its own thing is last year was a push pull. This is full power.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the name way better this year. So the Boss Hog Showdown April
Yep.
19th, 2025. Registration will be open pretty soon. So this releases on a Sunday, probably within the week. We're gonna have registration open. I don't know if you guys talked about, and if you don't know yet, it's no big deal. But how many competitors? It is gonna be full power. It is gonna be raw only. Um, and do you know how many competitors we're gonna allow in? I probably should have known this. It's at my gym, but uh,
Yeah, we've actually been back and forth about it. We'll definitely decide this week, but somewhere
yeah,
like between like 45 and 60, probably leaning more towards keeping it a little bit on the lower end of that.
yeah.
But yeah, like for example, the meet we did this past weekend was a 45 lifter cap. It goes really smooth. 3 15-person flights.
Yep.
And it just works really well. So probably leaning towards that.
Yeah, especially with Raw too. It makes it's a pretty seamless transition as far as you squat and then I squat after you, and it's like it's pretty seamless. I am a firm believer of like doing a little less than you think you can. Like we could
Oh, yeah.
run 80 lift or meet, I'm sure, and it'd be fine.
Hmm.
Like I kind of like having people want to sign up and like want to get their spot, and like because I think Legion went really well. Like I was talking to 3 guys today at our gym that are want to sign up immediately when it opens.
Yeah,
So
and it's
definitely a
like,
testament.
with the lifter in mind too, like I've personally done meets, and I'm sure you've seen some and things like that, where like because of a higher lifter cap, the gaps between lifts are almost a little bit too long. And it's
Yeah,
not like it's like within the flight, obviously it's fine because the flight sizes are, always anywhere between like 12 and 18 people. So it's always reasonable that way. But it's like, all right, I squatted and now I'm not going to bench for, 2 hours.
yeah.
It's like,
I think anything. I'd be curious your opinion on this because I've done meets that are AM and PM. You know,
yeah,
I think once you get over 50, you really start to flirt with like needing like an AM and a PM because it's gonna go slow. It's like I
yeah.
think like 15 is almost like the ideal flight size for powerlifting.
That's what I think. From my
Yeah.
experience, it just seems that way.
Yeah. I mean, now like lighter, more beginner people, I would always shy that they could do like probably like 10 to 12 people flights because they're more novice. They can kind of recover a lot quicker, lighter weights and stuff. But the
Mhm.
last thing you want is someone that squat like yourself. You just squat at 785. You don't want to take 750 and then be rushed out to the rack, for 785 because
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah,
especially where it gets like hairy too is for like wrapped competitors. Like, unless you have 3 pair of your wraps, like you have to go back there and crank them up and
yeah,
everything like
yeah,
that. So beyond like, because to be honest, like I think for most people who have decent GPP, you'll be able to do, a pretty quick turnaround on your squats, assuming that you picked
yeah,
reasonable attempts and everything. It's like,
yeah.
that opener shouldn't be taking a lot of gas out of the tank to begin with and things like that. But
Yeah. And then on the other side, you also don't want it too long of a break where it's like, you know
no,
what I mean? So that's why I'm saying like I think that 15-ish is like pretty perfect.
it's definitely a great number. And like just referencing like, the meet this weekend, but also like the Iron City meet. Now the Iron City meet, they're really efficient. I think they do run actually a 60 lifter meet where it's 4 flights of 15. And the flights are still a really great speed, but they don't take like long. Like, so some of the federations I've done, they take like a lunch in between, like,
Oh yeah.
like a 15-minute lunch break at the completion of squats or something. And
Yeah.
that really adds to that time between like when you squat and when you bench to make it a little bit slower and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um so well you actually just mentioned GPP and powerlifting and I saw a post and it's like I think people I'd be curious your take on this because GPP, general physical preparedness,
Mhm.
whatever you want to say. I think Louis popularized it with like sleds and stuff like that, but obviously it's been around forever and there's a
Mhm.
lot of coaches talk about it. I I think it's super overhyped and strong in powerlifting where like if you don't have like the think about the general physical preparedness like baseline to have for powerlifting. It's 9 lifts. It always blows my mind when someone's like, "Yeah, I wasn't able to get through that meet." It's like, well, dude, like That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of times I think that's that they had too high of expectations for themselves and just were probably taking weights they shouldn't have been taking. So in their head, like their cope is like, oh, I wasn't in shape enough. But the reality was like you could have had every condition perfect and they just still weren't probably going to move that weight.
Yeah, it wasn't general physical preparedness. It was you like took like a 102% on your opener.
Right,
And
exactly.
like, you know what I mean?
No.
So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'd be curious what you guys do for like GPP stuff, but I genuinely think like just from training for a comp,
Mm-hmm.
only time I think you need general physical preparedness is if you're one of the athletes that only squat, benches, and deadlifts. Like, I honestly think if you do accessories, like if you push accessories, I think you will have the necessary gas tank to finish a comp, like very easily.
No, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, I would say it gets maybe a little bit different just specifically with like super heavyweights. Because like even like, I mean, the reality is like good 308s are still pretty lean.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the only class where the guys that are actually good are like over 20% body fat is super heavyweight.
Right, right.
But I agree with you that like if people are actually diligently doing their accessories, but then the other thing is like nowadays it is very popularized to do these like SBD programs, in which case I would say like, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if that guy maybe, you know, feels a little more tired by the time it gets to his third deadlift at the end of the meet, because his just overall like work capacity is probably not that great over his training cycle. But I'd say also like guys like Sam Sulik that have like popularized like, you know, the like daily cardio and walks and things like that. I think people overdo GPP to where it's like, if your main focus of a training block is GPP, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're either just fat or like you're just wrong probably. Like it probably isn't. I can't remember if it's like Dave Tate. I can't. You might remember this old quote, but it was either from Dave Tate or Brandon Lilly or Jim Wendler, one of the old school guys. And they're like, really, if you can get on a treadmill and walk at like a zone 2 pace for 10 minutes, you have the GPP to do a powerlifting meet. And that's probably true, to be honest. Like, obviously you need the physical preparedness to be able to squat, bench, and deadlift a maximal weight. But I mean, as far as like a gas tank goes, like, you know,
I think whenever you are like a heavier athlete where like your cardiovascular shape in general comes more into play is honestly recovering like throughout your training blocks. So like if you're in better shape, you're going to recover better. And I'm speaking specifically on people who are fat.
Yeah.
Basically, and like something that I do, like for example, like on my off day, my only GPP I do like during a meet prep is I walk 3 miles on my off days.
Yeah,
I just go on a trail.
Yeah, that's really good. Like, I mean,
but it's like to me where people make the mistake is like your GPP should take nothing from your next session.
100%. It should add. It should not take or add to your next session.
No, it's like, so, I walk 3 miles. I don't feel that the next day in any manner.
You feel, if anything, you feel better. You promoted blood flow, exactly. Like got fresh air. It's like maybe even visualize like your sessions the next week or whatever. It's like, that's good stuff. But it's like, yeah, man, like sometimes I'll see like on, and Instagram's hard because you see crazy shit, but like I'll see someone doing like prowler pushes where they're like legit getting like rhabdo, like they're doing like prowler pushing, and it's like bringing up my GPP for my next powerlifting meet. It's like, well, dude, like your session is not going to be great because you just, No,
and like when talking about how like Westside kind of popularized GPP, like those off day workouts, like they even sometimes refer to them as feeder workouts.
Yes,
it's supposed to feed your next session.
Yeah.
So if you're like, a beginner lifter and, you're like, oh, I saw this 1,000-pound squatter doing 3 sets of 200 hamstring curls with a mini band. Like that might make you sore the next day.
Right.
Like if you're, a guy who's just getting into it and squatting 300 pounds, like it's a totally relative thing to where you just have to feel it's not a tough guy thing.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Like if
Yeah.
you feel like you're straining to get it done, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard for people to swallow their pride. And I think sometimes people see like those old West Side like sled workouts that people did like a quarter mile sled drag, but it's like, okay, it's a quarter mile. That sounds far, but they're doing it with like 145-pound plate. And those guys were also squatting, 1,200 in full gear. So like,
Right. So like
they're a lot stronger.
how different is walking one lap around a track with a 45-pound weight than it is just walking 3 miles with no weight?
Right, right. So it is something too, like it is something that, it may take some plug and play and just you might have to learn. You might have to eat some shit with GPP, but like,
Yeah, and I would recommend, if you're going to toy with that stuff, like do it in your off season. Don't be like thinking like, oh, I need to get in shape for the meet when you're, 4 weeks out and you're about to take your heaviest lifts. That's not the time to be like trying to be a cardio hero. You want to be as primed as you possibly can for those sessions. So
yeah, right. No, that's a good point. So, so the hog pen, right? It
mhm.
started. When did you guys officially kind of like open up your doors? I get you guys are like private, but when did you guys officially start like training under that roof?
Yeah, I think it was roughly January of this year.
Okay, so you're coming up on a year. You're getting
Mhm.
very close. What's it been like? Like, how have you enjoyed it? You guys are a funny crew. Like, I always tell people, like, you guys are kind of more of like an old school training crew with like, I don't know. It just always seems like you guys are like fighting and like,
Oh,
you
100%.
know what I mean? Which is cool. Like, I get it. But like, what's it been like for you? Because like, I guess you're kind of like the owner, but like, you also are like a private. It's kind of a cool thing you guys got going. But how's it been?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, we have like less than 20 members, and I honestly, I've turned certain people down that like, if you're not trying to kind of just accomplish the same thing that we are, as far as like, if you're just going there to work out, that's not what it's for, because honestly, the space is just not big enough. So
Yeah.
like, you go there at 5 o'clock, it's like 1,300 square feet. So you go there at 5 p.m. and there's 8 dudes in there. There's just not a lot of room for the guy who just wants to come in and do his couple cable exercises and leave. And it's not, a tough guy thing. It's just like they're not going to like it either.
Yeah, yeah. And it has to be functional for you guys. Like you guys are all serious competitors. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, everyone's gonna get pissed off. And it's like, yeah, you got eight guys need the freaking mono,
Mm-hmm.
four guys need the mono, four guys need the bench. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, actually, we're hoping to get a combo rack at the beginning of the new year, once like everybody pays dues for the year.
Yeah.
Use that money for that, and it's kind of, I personally, and I hope that everybody who is a member listens to this and gets pissed off. I just think that a lot of them are princesses about different things. Like there's certain members of our gym, I won't name names, but there's certain members of our gym who won't use a fat pad. We have like a fat pad bench and then a regular comp bench. And like, if somebody's using the comp bench, they won't use the other one because it's not comp specific. All I use is the fat pad and I outbench all of them. So.
Good chirp. That had to feel good.
No, but even like with like, just like there are a time and place where like I think being a princess is warranted, like if, one of our guys is 3 weeks out doing his heaviest squat. Yeah, that guy needs the mono. Like
Right,
if you're
right.
competing
No.
on a mono, like he has every right or she has every right to, use that piece of equipment at that time. But that's where I say like the other people who are not 3 weeks out and you're just doing, your cash, you can walk it out, man. Like
Yeah,
we
right.
went to the comp this weekend and the warm-up room didn't have a monolift. So like I'm walking out squats that I've never walked out in my life. Like,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
just got to be able to adapt like that. Like it's really not that big of a deal. Be honest, walking back in is the part that feels more uncomfortable.
Yeah, and honestly, the only time I see it where it's a completely almost unfathomable, like you can't do it, is like multiply, like just like for those guys, like super heavy
Oh
multiply
yeah.
squats. Like, dude, That's almost impossible to actually walk out a squat. But yeah, man, I totally agree with you. I mean, you gotta at some point you do have to adapt and be an athlete. Like there still is that aspect of it as being a competitor where it's like you gotta remember on comp day, it's like Murphy's Law. Like what can go wrong is gonna go wrong. So you have to be able to like think on the fly, like shit, the guy, you wrap your knees, the guy before you fucking dumps his squat and
Oh,
now it takes 6 minutes for them to get him up, get the weight up, reload your weight, and you got to unwrap. Like, you got to be able to adjust on the fly. So I mean, I'm with you on that, man.
yeah, I remember I did in Youngstown. It was a metal militia meet. The guy that was squatting in front of me was like in the back of the warehouse,
Uh
and they're
huh.
just like yelling for him. And there was no like clock, right? Like they could enforce it and just be like, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
we got to move you, but they didn't want to do that, right? So the guy's like running from like the back of the warehouse, and I'm already wrapped.
yeah, yeah,
So like, you got to be able to deal with that stuff. I mean, that's like if you want to consistently perform at meets, you're going to be thrown curveballs like that. It's little stuff, but if you're a princess all the time when you're in the gym and everything has to be perfect for you to perform, it's not reality when you go to a competition. I mean, obviously, way more so when you're at a strongman competition where there's so many variables that can be so different than however you trained. But even in powerlifting, it's like I said, Nick, the guys who did the guys who did the meet, we were walking out weights we've never walked out before in the
yeah,
warm up room. And it's not that big of a deal because like we're athletes, we adapted to it, and all three of us really we all hit lifetime squat PRs. So, but
yeah,
it's like if you can't in your off season sit and just walk out a squat once in a while, like there's something fundamentally wrong with you mentally, like your mentality.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you can't overcome.
Yeah, no. That's the one thing I really miss about powerlifting is like it was normal to warm up, and then in strongman, like all these old people that are in it are like think it's cool not to warm up. You got a taste of it because you've done two comps, right?
Yeah.
You've done two comps. It's like that's one thing I hate about strongman is like, oh, it's like doing 800-pound yoke cold. It's like, well, dude, that's stupid. Like that's just it's so
Yeah, I remember listening to like a stoned Greg Panora rant where he was talking just about a meet that he did, and the number, and I've actually used this number as a point of reference, like 7.5% for jumps. Now that's not for warm ups; that's for like contest weights.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
point is, like sometimes a contest weight is a max attempt for people in strongman, and if you're jumping, from 315 to 800. It's like, well, there's just no way you can convince me that they're going to perform their best. And also, it's like, we all put a lot of time into these contests, which are like hobbies. And it's like, it's kind of sucks when you go on a comp day and like you don't even get to properly warm up.
yeah, yeah, man.
You put 12, 16, 20 weeks of work into something, and it's like, well, this is going to
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah, yeah. Like actually, the last comp you did, we did together. We both competed. I remember my deadlift. I mean, luckily for me, it was a lighter percentage, but we 500 pounds on a stiff bar cold. Yeah, I literally did not touch a deadlift bar.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did not touch it. I have to walk up and deadlift 500. Like no matter how good of a deadlifter you are, that still sucks.
Yeah, and I saw both sides of the coin. Like, obviously, I'm a better presser than I am a deadlifter. Like, I did the log, I think, cold, or maybe I did the empty log, like prior to doing the reps. That's easy. Like, it's fine. It still doesn't feel good though.
Yeah, right.
Like, could I have done better if I had an extra warm up? Probably. Like, but the thing is, at least it's even. Like, it's not like a thing where like I'm like, oh, if I got to warm up, I would have beat this guy, right?
Yeah, right.
It's the same for everybody. It's just
Right.
like, well, if everybody could have done 20 pounds more, wouldn't that have been cooler?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it. I don't think warm-ups need to be absolutely perfect, where it's like, okay, I'm taking 20% now, 40%. It's like
Not at all.
give us a little bit of time to touch the implements.
Yeah, I mean, like usually at a powerlifting meet, like even myself, like I'm not a super great deadlifter, but I mean, I'm going, plate, 2 plates, 3 plates, 4 plates, 5 plates, one more, and I'm done.
Yeah, right, right.
Like, so it's like, yeah, they don't have to be some like super calculated, 40 minutes to warm up. It's like, hey, give the competitors 20 minutes to kind of just figure it out. And, that's probably sufficient.
Right. Yeah, 100%. What I forgot to ask, so You said you guys were talking about getting a combo rack at the beginning of the year, when you guys pay your dues. How do you, like, as a club, I'm interested because you guys are like a true barbell club. How do you guys decide, like, this is what we want? Do you guys, like, find a way to come to a mutual agreement? Do you have to, like, do a vote? How do you guys do it? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you just get to be like, fuck you guys. Like, I
well,
get it. I mean, because, like, it's your, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it kind of all depends because, like, for example, like the combo rack, right? Like, we've definitely like kind of what I was talking about earlier with the fat pad and the comp pad. Like we have a need for an extra competition bench, and so a combo rack provides that, right? So I don't have to ask to know like people want an extra competition bench.
yeah, right.
And I actually almost prefer that I don't have to ask because it's like, you probably know this as a gym owner, especially me, because I'm not like making money off of this place, right? So
Right.
and there's not a lot of inflow and outflow periods. So it's like I don't want people complaining to me about what we don't have because like, unless you're going to pay for it, it's not coming out of my pocket either. So,
Right.
but yeah, I kind of just listen to what people say. And like, sometimes I'll throw in and just say like, hey, is this something we would want, especially for like bigger purchases like that, where we're buying something new? Because a lot of the stuff we have in the gyms off Facebook Marketplace. And it's just like, well, hey, if it's something that we've talked about, like even with me and two other members that we thought would be cool to have, and I see a quick deal on it, you know how it is.
Oh, yeah,
as a
yeah,
big
yeah.
Facebook Marketplace guy yourself, you just hop on it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. 100%. And it is something too, like, you almost have to trust your gut. Is like you are like the owner. It's like
Yeah.
if and this is no hard feelings to anyone that's ever been a member of 580, but if I listened to what people recommended to buy, I probably would be out of business and all that shit would be dusty and not used because
Yep.
people always recommend, like, no offense, they recommend pretty stupid stuff. But I'm
Yeah.
like, you only like that is so specific to just you. You know what I mean? Or like
Right.
whatever. It's like so yeah. No, that's cool. I was just curious kind of how you guys did it, like you
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's been very minimal, like very large purchases, right? Like where I'm
right.
buying new stuff. It's like, hey, at the beginning, and at the beginning, we were using money that we made from like just Hog Mode, like coaching,
Yeah, yeah.
to buy the stuff. So like, really, I only had to ask the other people who are contributing to that because like the rest of the people didn't earn that money.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, yeah. So it's like if you want something, you got to buy it, because you're not contributing to the
Right. And really
or
though,
you just
like we
don't
did a really
say.
great job of like just finding deals on Facebook Marketplace, and like we lucked into a couple different things as well. And like we pretty much have everything we need, right? And then so that
Yeah.
now it's like it's just all like icing on the cake.
Yeah,
Whatever you
everything's
can
bonus
buy.
money now, like, but you will be like, you guys have only been open for like, almost a year. You'll be so surprised in like 2 years what your guys' gym will look like. It'll be
Oh
like,
yeah.
it'll be so crazy to look like. I'm getting the 4-year anniversary like videos right now, like from like when I first got the keys and everything, and I was like just painting the gym, and it's wild. It's so
Yeah.
wild because you just compound over time. Like if you care about it, what you guys do,
Yeah.
like, hey, if we need something, we're gonna get it. And like,
Yeah. And
whatever.
like you get like, you like for example, you get the dues money at the beginning of the year. Yeah, there's like bills that have to be paid, like electricity and like, portage on at our gym, we
Yeah,
don't,
yeah,
so like different things like that. But with the money left over, it's like, we don't pocket that stuff. It's always just something going back into the gym because that's what everybody wants, like that's what
yeah.
I want. Um,
Right. No, I mean that's still how I am to this day. Like, I mean, I'm the only owner, and it is a for-profit business, but I've still never taken a dollar from the gym. 4 years,
yeah.
and I've actually probably spent more than I've made because I don't pay attention. I just if I see something I want, I just buy it. Like I just went and bought another log and
Yeah, and like
um,
for you, I mean, that will pay off in the long term
yeah.
because it's like even right now, I'd say as a strength athlete, you have to be one of the best outfitted gyms in Western PA,
Well, I appreciate
and
it.
that's not just from a strongman perspective. I mean, you guys now have a monolift, you have combo racks, you have like you pretty much if you compete in a strength sport, regardless of which strength sport that is, you guys are outfitted to take that. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have fat bells up to 150, so you basically have dumbbells at 150.
which I'm so jealous of because I'm a
Yeah.
Donnie Thompson fanboy.
Dude, I'm such a Donnie Thompson fanboy. But then, we have 9 places to squat now, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. But yeah, so we'll close out. I want to talk a little bit about you doing, because we mentioned that you've done strongman. So you think you will? Do you think you'll do strongman again ever? Like, you think you'll hop in a comp eventually?
Yeah, before I die, 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
It's honestly a thing. Like, I'm not like shy about admitting, my shortcomings. It's just like the reality is, so I just hit a good deadlift PR for me, but like, if there's a show I'm going to do, you can't zero an event and be competitive.
right. It's very
So like, until I'm at the point where I just am 100% concrete that like I'm not going to zero a deadlift event. So
right.
where like for example, that show I did in Ohio, I won the pressing event and I zeroed the deadlift.
Yeah, that sucks.
So yeah, and I mean it's just like reality. You got guys like Frawley that are pulling 800 pounds. I'm not at a 700 deadlift yet. So if the show has a 700 deadlift, I'm immediately taking a zero there. And it's like, and what are the odds that somebody that pulls 800 pounds, I'm going to beat so badly in press that I'm going to make up those points? Like, just to not. So eventually, I'd love to do one again whenever I get to the point where it's like, hey, I'm not going to zero the deadlift. And I think I'm athletic enough and can press enough to where I can be competitive in the other areas. But
yeah. I mean, that's your thing. Like, you are a really good presser, even in your limited time pressing a log. You mentioned you won the press at Ohio's Strongest in 2021. I think that was probably.
Mm-hmm.
You won the log with some good guys. I think you were 275, right?
Yep. Yeah, I cut it down.
Yeah, so that you won the press at that show, and then we mentioned you play college football, so you're athletic, so but it's like, I never knock anyone for not wanting. Like, I haven't done a powerlifting meet in longer than you haven't done a strongman comp. So
you just lean into what you're good at, right? Like, the reality is,
and what you enjoy. Like, if I'm not going to enjoy it, your heart's not going to be in it. So I'm really close to considering doing the Boss Hog Showdown. I really want to do it. I just got to make sure, it meets my schedule and everything. But like, yeah, I would love to get back on the platform.
Shawley's been chirping a lot about your squat.
Yeah, and you pulled 665 in a meet officially, which is more than I ever did in 2017 in a comp. So I got to come back and beat.
Back when you were fat.
Yeah, back when I was fat. I wasn't as fat as you, but I was getting there. I'm only 5'8", so maybe body fat percentage wise, I was getting close. I was like 242 there for a minute, and then I like stopped breathing, and I was like, shit, that's tough.
Stop being able to recover and stuff. That's where, like I said, like the walks and stuff, just being able to
Well, it's funny. Like, when like, I always want to tell, how it is, like, someone says they have a hard time gaining weight and stuff, and it's always, 99% of the time it's bullshit. I just want to pay Gray, one of my best friends. We mentioned him, but if you don't know Gray Singala, he's like one of my best friends. I don't think I've ever had him on this pod, but if anyone's ever having a hard time gaining weight, pay me. I will send them to Gray's fat camp, and I guarantee you, Gray can put 100 pounds on a human in 2 years, no matter what you weigh. I mean, he was the fattest. He still is the fattest and most disgusting person I ever met. But like, just what he put me through, I went just to put actual numbers to it. I went from 181 to 242 in 6 months living with Gray. Like, I went up. That's 1, 2, 3. That's 4 entire weight classes in powerlifting. I went up in basically one semester of living with him in college. He's that disgusting and fat. Like, it's just, I want to send anyone that's a hard gainer to Gray and be like, all right, I'll see it super heavyweight.
Yeah. And like, usually the guys who say that, and like, a lot of times there's two sides of the coin. Like, there's pointless weight to gain that's probably not even going to help you long term.
Right.
And then, but like, the same guy who's telling you he's a heart gainer, you're like, well, why don't you like start eating a pizza on Saturdays? And they're like, oh, well, no, I don't want to get fat. And it's like, well,
yeah, you have to give a little bit to get a little bit, right? And there is something too, like it is clearly advantageous to be heavier to move weight. Now, now you start talking about strongman. There's some other like contributing factors that might like you might give up a lot of time on a medley where it's like, but powerlifting, mass,
yeah, it's like there's always like I was kind of talking about earlier. The only class that's actually fat is super heavyweight.
Yeah,
like
and
the best.
There's still some jack dudes that
Oh, 100%.
But I know what you mean. Yeah.
The only one that even has any competitive dudes that are fat.
Yeah. Right.
Because like at like 308, if you just look at like the top 10 in the world, they're like they all basically have abs.
Right. I mean, remember
Eric
Lillibridge was 308, and like he's like 275, 308. I mean, he looked like an off-season bodybuilder, which a lot of the guys do.
And actually, today, the 308 sleeve all-time record total was beat by a literal bodybuilder.
Oh, really? Who?
Kyle Curve.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
He was an IFBB pro. He started powerlifting like 2 or 3 years ago. And obviously he had that base of just being super jacked.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to watch that even from the perspective again of like being a princess earlier. The guy like still like walks out of just a regular power rack, like literally squatting like 900 pounds in training. He's walking out with like 3 nerds spotting him on each side, and it's it's funny, because that guy is literally the actual strongest guy in the world at 308 pounds, and you'll have people that are doing 800 pounds less than him on their total complaining about walking out.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a topic that you and I have talked about a lot, is like once you get to the actual top level, you don't see people that don't look like they lift. Like, you know what I mean? So that sloppiness only sticks around for it only gets you through so many local meets where you can tell.
Yeah. And I mean, like long term, like, your insulin sensitivity gets worse when you're, overly fat, like all these factors that make it harder for you to like add lean tissue, which at the end of the day, like, yeah, obviously some fat in certain situations can help your leverage on like squat and bench. But overall, it's lean tissue that's moving the weight. I mean, that's a perfect example today. That guy, Kyle Curve's, a former bodybuilder, he probably has more lean tissue than anybody else in the world in his weight class, and so his strength potential is higher.
Yeah, well, I'll be curious what you think about this, but it's a post I see a lot, a topic I see in posts a lot now is more like in strength sports. It ends up really being more of a height class than a weight class. Obviously, you weigh 100%. In. Yeah, I agree, man. Like if you look around, if you were in a class and you're what, like probably 6'3"?
Mm-hmm.
So if you looked around and everyone in your class was 5'9", you'd be like, man, something's wrong. You know what I mean?
It's the same conversation. You just can't have enough tissue on your body.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like 242, I look like Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, which is like no shot at him, great running back, but it's like, that's not the build you want to have whenever you're trying to move the most weight possible. It's like you're just going to be a lot smaller and not filled out to move those weights. Like you're just not going to, especially like, like bench to me is a lift that's very just indicative of how much muscle you have. Like how many guys bench 500 pounds that don't look like they could bench 500 pounds. It's pretty rare. So like you just have to be able to fill out that much. And like you said, like Cole Graham, who's a young guy at our gym, he's 6'6", like if he was even a 308, like he'd look kind of skinny.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
what did it feel like to bench your first like 5? I mean, obviously good. It felt good, I'm sure, but you hit over 500 raw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you have? Like, I know you set really realistic goals, and that's one thing I really like about you. But like, what's your next big number that you think's attainable in the next few years?
Honestly, and this isn't like I'm not trying to say it like a corny way. I try not to look past like what I want to do at my next meet, because it's like your ceiling is so hard to tell because you just never know when you're going to hit that wall. You know what I mean?
For
Like,
sure.
so like for me to say like, oh, I want to bench 600 pounds someday. Well, like, of course I do. But like, is that in the cards for me? You're going to have like hiccups and things like that. Or, you know, conversely, you might blow through it. Like, so, but like my next meet, I'd love to get into like that 540, 550 pound range. I mean, at the end of the day, my end goal is, I'd love to do a 2,000 pound total. Probably, I'd like to do a little bit over that in reps at my next meet. I'm not going to compete for like a year because I'm
Yeah, I was gonna
next
ask.
year.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
ask when you kind of plan to compete next.
yeah, I got to be a bikini model for a few
Yeah,
months, and then
there you go.
no, I'll put weight back on it. So I'll probably like spring of 2026, honestly. And so I'd like to do that, and then after that, try to total 2,000 in sleeves as well would be a cool goal. But um, yeah, so 540, 550.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, you answered my other questions kind of if you wanted to eventually squat in sleeves because that's like obviously the big thing now. Who knows? In 2 years, it'll be something else. You
Yeah,
know?
it's like, well, you know, same thing I was talking about earlier. Like Joe Alessandro is the guy who got me into powerlifting, and like to his credit, like he was a gear guy. You know, when gear was the thing, right? Like,
Right.
like he was just going where the competition was, and then you know, at the end of his powerlifting career, he went to wraps because that's where the competition was. So then I was introduced to powerlifting and wraps, and now honestly, I'm just in for one, I have fun squatting in wraps. It's a fun thing. Like my buddy wraps my knees. Like it's just like a whole the thing that I kind of do love about wraps is the fact that you kind of have to have a crew.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So the fact that I have one, I love taking advantage of it.
Yeah,
Like
no,
I have a great crew, and it's almost like in a weird way, it's like my way to like appreciate all those guys is like, hey, you know, we all like train together and like support each other. So why don't we do this thing that other people can't do that don't have a crew like us?
right. No, I
But
love that, man. That's a really good way to look at it.
yeah, but like just from the perspective of, you know, like just kind of proving that again, you can kind of adapt is the only reason I'd like to eventually do a sleeve meet. But definitely not before I total 2,000, just because that's kind of just the arbitrary number that, you know, since you were young, you look at and things like
Yeah,
that.
for sure, man.
But
Well,
just
man,
to prove to like the young guys that do squat in sleeves, you know, like, and they're like, oh, well, you squat in reps, like, you know, you could probably only squat 590 in sleeves,
yeah,
like, you
right.
know. So just to do that someday, just to kind of prove yourself another, like Phil Herndon is a guy that is, I think it's so cool what he does. He has world record squats in 242, 275, and he might even have them in 308, but he literally has them in sleeves, wraps, single ply, and multiply,
See, that's cool.
like in
That's
multiple
right.
weight classes. So it's just like saying, like, hey, strong is strong, you know, like he's the best squatter in the world in those weight classes, and he's just proving it in every element. And you see a lot of these guys that are like at the top level, they switch between both. It's like whatever goal motivates you at the time, right? Like, so you kind of get over that mountain of like an arbitrary number like 2,000, and you're like, well, what's next? Well, it'd be cool to do it in sleeves. And then after you do 2,000 sleeves, you're probably like, well, I'd love to do 2,100 in wraps. You know,
Yeah,
it's just whatever motivates you at the time, and honestly, whatever you have fun with. Like, because again, it's a hobby. So, like, if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? So, just do whatever like sets your soul on fire at the time.
100%, dude. I think that's a cool way to look at it. I think that's a cool way to wrap it up. Do you guys? So, first off, make sure if you guys are watching on YouTube, it's you guys can see Ben's Instagram on the bottom, but it's BPEV72. You make sure you follow him, and then the Hog Mode guys do have their own page. It's just Hog Mode Training, just all one word. You guys can follow them on Instagram. You know, we're obviously collaborating with them a lot. I think just kind of the spring and fall, you know, kind of deal. Working kind of as a team and having our crews together. I think in Western PA we're gonna run some awesome meets. I'm really really excited for it because you guys do have such a good crew. Like obviously Shawley, he's like does it all. He's
Mm-hmm.
like seriously, like they have this guy named Jake Shawley, and it's insane. He's just a handy. He's the craziest guy ever, but does everything, and like he's super, like he's funny, but he is like one of the hardest workers in the room if if you meet him. And obviously like Matt, Hot Dog Boy, he's awesome. You guys have Neil, cool. I don't want to list everyone, but you guys have just a really awesome crew. And
it's kind of like it really works well because it's like everybody kind of has their own rule. Like, Jake obviously does everything. Like Jake's actually pointed this out someday because he's a smart guy and like looks at things from like a company perspective. And it's like, we all kind of accidentally took on these different rules. Like I'm the assets guy. Like I find these things on Facebook Marketplace and I drive to wherever and grab them. Jake takes care of all the like handiwork. He's a super handy dude. He does the accounting too. I mean, and like you have guys like Matt, Noah.
Yeah, Matt eats hot dogs on Instagram every day, and
Jordan Kuzma. I mean, Bane Marshall. I could keep Ty Gaffney. I could keep shouting out guys, but like they all contribute. Nick Dillio, obviously. Yeah. But I don't want to like forget anyone.
No, but isn't that cool though that you guys like? It's kind of like you create your own ecosystem where everyone kind of like takes care. Like I'm sure people get pissed off and stuff, but everyone kind of like has their role. Like you're talking about, and
it's all just cool. Like competitive shit talk, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Nick Dillio, I basically wanted to strangle him 4 months ago because it was like he beat my total, and he just like wouldn't stop talking about it,
right?
And me being the humble guy I am, I'm not going to do the same to him, but all jokes aside, like it's like I mean. The vast majority of like the shit talk and bickering, it's like literally it's like stories that you heard from West Side of like where guys would go on like internet message boards under fake names and like mess with each other, just talking shit about their lifts and stuff. We all, at the end of the day, we all love each other, and it's just like a thing where we're all competitive. You want to beat each other, and you want to talk shit, and you want to think you're better than the next guy, and that's what makes it work though. Like that's how everybody gets better.
Right. Well, all right, man. Well, thank you so much for the time. I know we went about an hour, but I'm sure we'll talk to Ben again. I'm sure you guys will hear me talk about Ben, and we will be sure. So follow Hog Mode, follow Ben. Make sure you're following us, obviously. We'll be posting out the Boss Hog Showdown link here in the next probably week. So if you want to do a powerlifting meet in Western PA, come sign up. And Ben, man, I appreciate it. And good job.
Yeah, if you have any questions about like the meet, please feel free to DM me personally, the Hog Mode Instagram account, whatever you'd like. But like Josh said, we'll have that link out probably within the week here. And it will be, just to cover like a couple quick things, it will be a monolift meet, obviously being RPS. You can do wraps or sleeves, but it is raw only. So no single ply, no multiply, no unlimited, any of that. But yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Congrats for your new total PR, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on, Josh.